Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Friday, January 29th, 2021. And here are our top stories keeping your small business cyber secure. And we'll take a look at some of the top cybersecurity trends for 2021. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Kevin Urso. He is the president of Connected Technologies based on Long Island. Kevin, Happy New Year. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Good to see you again, Jeff.
Absolutely. Let's talk about cybersecurity because there's been a lot. I think we had you on the show several months ago, and since that time we've had the SolarWinds hack. We've had so many different things happen in spite of this pandemic. Let's first talk about cybersecurity spending. It looks like in 2021, I think I saw some research, it's going to be up over 10%. I want to get your reaction to this.
Yeah, we're seeing it across the board. So, last year, maybe at the beginning of the year, you saw it more from big businesses, but we're even seeing a lot of small to medium businesses really putting some money into the cybersecurity because it's really what's keeping their business running at this point. A lot of people working from home and being able to work from different places.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is tremendous amount of activity. And I want to get to remote working in a second because whether you're a large business or a small business, your workers, if you can, look, if you're manufacturing, a little bit more difficult, but you are having people work from home. So let's talk about this from the small business perspective. You work with a lot of different size organizations, large, small, for-profit, not-for-profit. Small businesses have really been impacted, I would say, especially hard from this pandemic, both financially and also from a human capital point of view. But give us your assessment how they've done through the pandemic as it relates to cybersecurity.
Yeah, so what we saw was companies that had security in mind before the pandemic transitioned pretty well. They had some small effects and transitioned to home use. The companies that were kind of just doing the minimum, they had a little bit of a tough time because all of a sudden now you're using home laptops. You're using these insecure systems at home. You don't know how to connect. You don't know how to talk. You don't know how to share your files. So that definitely was an awakening for many companies.
Yeah, and I would imagine, I mean, how have you and the team at Connected Technologies really stepped up to facilitate that? I mean, is it going out and trying to lease devices through Dell or other manufacturers? Is it, securing iPhones and Android phones? What are some of the things that you all are doing to help with this problem?
Yeah, it's funny. Getting laptops you never thought was a problem back a year ago. But when this was happening, trying to just physically get laptops for people was difficult. And some clients who had that disaster recovery plan in place and had laptops already purchased, that was a huge home run for them. What we are really doing differently is we're really switching our security from behind the network. So you used to be behind the firewall and you did all your security there, you protected the network. Now we're really protecting the endpoint. So a lot of software going on that end user workstation to try to protect it because it's no longer necessarily behind the firewall. It's out there on some other network we don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have their information on the cloud. How comfortable are you with, and I'm sure your firm does a lot of due diligence on this, going to server farms and trying to figure out the security and the pathology, et cetera. But how confident are you in these cloud services and being able to remain hack-free or phishing-free, et cetera?
Yeah, so I don't think it's a matter of them being completely, it's never going to happen to them either because we've seen it happen to, SolarWinds and all this. But I think it's following the same best practices, whether your data is on your system or if it's up in the cloud. It's still the same set of best practices you have to take. It's just how do you apply them?
Yeah. And Kevin, the minute I heard about SolarWinds, I thought of you. Because I really wanted to get your assessment. Look, this can happen to the federal government. and this is a third party that the federal government was using. What were your first reactions when you saw that this had happened, that there was a significant breach on an entity that worked with our federal government, exposing countless number of records and information? What does it say to you in terms of working with your clients?
Yeah. So what we advise our clients is they have to do the due diligence of vetting their vendors. So, they have to ask the questions. What type of software are you using? How do you make sure your software is secure? Because if their MSP happen to be using SolarWinds or even any other software that lets them connect into the network and administer it, you got to make sure that that vendor is doing everything correctly, because they're a single point of contact for potential malicious actor.
Yeah, and just because you're no longer vulnerable or not as vulnerable because the data is stored off-site, someone else is vulnerable. And at the end of the day, Kevin, reputation risk, that's huge. If your vendor gets hacked, it's still you. It's still your company that is, or organization, or a school, or a government that is still on the line here. Yeah,
and what we're seeing too, it's interesting. Last year, ransomware was everywhere, and people were, telling people, make sure you back up. It's your last line of defense so you can restore. Now that the malicious actors have said, okay, you have a backup, we're still going to ask you for the ransom, because we'll just release all your personal info out to your competitors, to your, to the web. And for a lot of companies, that's just as bad, because now you have all this maybe proprietary information out there. It's very important to your business.
Kevin, when we last spoke several months ago, you have hit this home every time we've talked. Education, reaffirming the education, making sure that your staff is aware, that you as an executive team, as leaders in the company, everyone is aware of the protocols and the steps you need to take. Any more on that? Has that changed at all? Has that become even more heightened with regards to SolarWinds and some of the other hacks and ransomware attacks we've seen?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice I would give is what we typically see is, the C-level people, the owners, right? They want everyone else to follow the training, but I still want to have admin credentials. I still want to be able to do whatever I want to do. And what they're not realizing is they are the prime target. So the hackers know, if I can get into that one account, I'm going to get some real good information. I'm probably going to be able to, go sideways into the rest of the network and get in there. So a C-level person, an owner, they have to treat themselves as one of the staff members and do the same level of protections that they're asking their staff to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely vital. And even with newer technologies, I think we've explored on the show, Kevin, maybe not necessarily with you, we've explored passwordless solutions. So there's companies, startups out there that have figured out a way, or at least considering a way, where you don't have to remember all those passwords. And I got to think that maybe that's a new territory that is uncovered, or something that certainly could be of future interest to your clients and others.
Yeah, definitely. Passwordless for right now, using a password manager. They're very inexpensive. They make your life a lot easier. And multi-factor authentication it's not the answer to everything, but it does help. It solves a lot of the quick little errors you may make. So yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be carrying your phone everywhere with you. Well, Kevin, I want to take a very quick break. We come back, we're going to continue more of the conversation on cybersecurity, and we'll talk about some of the biggest trends for 2021 with Kevin. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings in retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here, and if you're on Medicare, this is important. You're now entitled to eliminate copays and get dental care, dentures, eyeglasses, prescription coverage, in-home aids, unlimited transportation, and home-delivered meals, all at no additional cost. Plus, your zip code may have coverage with the Give Back benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. Look, with the uncertainty of the virus and vaccines, you need to get everything you're entitled to. Here's the bottom line. Call to get significant benefits at no additional cost and see if your zip code has coverage with the Give Back benefit. Millions of people have trusted the Medicare coverage helpline. You can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-924-3920. That's 1-800-924-3920.
Welcome back. We're talking to Kevin Urso of Connected Technologies. Kevin, thanks as always for staying with us this morning.
Oh, thanks a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And look, this is really important stuff. And I think whether you're an organization, a business, or you're an individual, you need to be aware of what's happening in cybersecurity. So we said at the top of the show, cybersecurity spending expected to grow at least 10%. I probably, as a layperson, I would expect that to go even higher, just knowing what we've experienced in 2020. But Kevin, what are some of the top trends? You mentioned some of them, protecting your cloud source, educating, but what are some of the things that you and the team at Connected Technologies are thinking about and telling clients this year?
So I think number one is going to be some type of hybrid model. So right now we're definitely more, obviously, people working primarily from home, but we're starting to see where it's going to be a mix. So a few people in the office or maybe a rotation schedule. So we're getting questions about like simple things like, can I share a desk? So rather than having a desk space for every single person, how do I set up my phone, my computer, so a person can come in on Monday and then on Tuesday, someone else come and, uses that desk. So that we've been getting a lot of that. Mm-hmm. A lot of third-party assessments. So a lot of companies, partners that you work with are starting to ask our clients, hey, what are you doing for your security? Can you answer these questions? Can you make me feel comfortable that you've done what you need to do so you're not the point of entry for my network? So a lot of those type of assessments, I think, are going to be coming down the road in 2021.
And Kevin, when it comes to those assessments, are we talking, is it just vulnerabilities with smaller firms, or is it larger firms too? Because, I mean, the misconception could be, and, and to get your thoughts on this, that a larger company, they've got the resources to spend and protect themselves, but the smaller company, they can't do enough and they need help. I mean, is that a true assessment, or is it really just kind of run the gamut and where the C-suite and the technology folks have really focused their attention?
Yeah, so we're definitely see the smaller companies were kind of forgotten about in the past in terms of these assessments. Like you said, larger organizations have a team, they have processes in place, and what was realized is, hey, I'm doing business with this company. Maybe they don't have all this in place, so they're starting to be asked now out of the blue. And a lot of our clients are coming to us saying, I'm being asked to answer this questionnaire with 150 questions on it. I don't know where to start. What are they asking me to do? What do they even want from me? So that's really what we're seeing a lot of.
Are you seeing a lot of organizations, maybe they didn't have a chief information officer or a chief technology officer? And I know that's kind of hard, and that can be for a lot of reasons. That's maybe hard in today's day and age. But are you seeing more organizations step up, hire the CTO, the CIO, or even a chief policy officer, or at least embed that role with other members of the C-suite?
Yeah, we're seeing it. I see a lot of hybrid. So maybe not a dedicated person, but a policy officer for sure, someone who has that role, and maybe they are also doing another role. And that's tough too, because a lot of these questionnaires are asking how are you doing certain things, and being split is tough to stay on top of that stuff. So they are relying on companies like us and third parties to try to fill that gap.
Yeah, I mean, in any small business, right? I mean, if you're doing multiple roles, it's hard to be really good at just one. But look, that's just the way business works. But this is something that I think is so important that it really needs either someone to have that role, and again, this is just my point of view, someone to have that role, or someone to at least be very, have an emergency plan in place, and someone to be very knowledgeable about what you do step 1 through 20 in order to protect yourself. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think what works well for the smaller and medium-sized companies is have a key person who's kind of the champion in the business, and if they are working with a third party, the third party can guide that person and say, this is where we need to get to, and that champion in the business kind of pushes the staff along and gets there,
Yeah. Last question, Kevin. When it comes to ransomware, you mentioned this, I think, throughout kind of our show today, segment 1 and in segment 2. How rampant is ransomware? Are people, whether it's businesses or individuals, are people still falling prey to it? I've been watching some YouTube videos of people who are trying to protect others from spammers and scammers, actually, trying to identify these people. But is it your thought that this is still very prevalent, and it's prevalent not only by individuals, but also other nation states?
Yeah, I would say it's at the point of almost being out of control a little bit. So we're seeing it constantly, and we're seeing they're not very complicated lots of times. They're very simple. So a hacker will fool a user into giving them credentials into their Office 365, and then from there they kind of quietly start to take over their email, and from there they start to distribute ransomware to that company and to all their clients. And a lot of that takes place in the background, and because of the rules they set up in their email, the customer doesn't even know what's going on until it's way too late. So a very simple attack becomes pretty major pretty quickly.
Last question, I lied. Last question for you, Kev. In terms of Congress, I mean, this is SolarWinds really elevated this because it was at the federal level. Members of Congress, the regulatory entities, I'm thinking about SEC, some of the other agencies within the federal government. This has really become a big issue. Are you expecting, or would we expect, to have more regulation or legislation around cybersecurity, either mandating certain protections for businesses and organizations, or maybe some other types of protocols put in place?
It's a tough one. There are some now, but a lot of them don't really have much teeth behind them. So we have the HIPAA, we have FINRA, and there's different ones for different verticals, but a lot of them are kind of suggestions, best practices. So I think it really falls upon the business owner, the individual organization. It's not really that I'm being told I have to do it. This is something you need to do to protect your business, to stay in business, really, because some of these events are business ending.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, you could lose everything, not only the money that you earn through a phishing event or a spam event, but you could lose your reputation. If you lose your reputation, no one will want to do business with you. Well, Kevin, It's a pleasure chatting with you, as always, really enlightening. I hope people in the audience really learn something, take it back to their organizations and to how they're working individually to protect themselves. Until next time, Kevin, really appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Great. Thanks so much. Nice seeing you.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, and then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. Don't forget, we're back again tomorrow for BRN Weekly. We'll have a very special guest, and we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired of the same old stuff.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.